Hey everyone, today we're here to talk about why we use single rate springs on vehicles like Xpeditions and then dual rate on other. Both single rate and dual rate have a purpose and they work better for depending on what kind of vehicle it is. Today I want to talk about though, because we have so many questions, why do we use a single rate spring on the Xpeditions? We're going to go and graph it out for you. All right, I know everybody hates math class, but we're gonna draw this out because it is a little bit easier to understand what's going on. So good old X and Y. We're gonna go, and this axis is gonna be our spring. I'm gonna try to simplify this as much as possible. But basically, the higher up it goes on this chart, that is the more spring force it's creating, whether that's travel or through preload. We'll get into that in a second. And this is gonna be our shock stroke. And we're gonna pretend this is a 6-inch long shock. So this is the end of the travel here. The middle is gonna be 3 inches. It's simple. Now, one thing you always have to consider is ride height, right? That's what actually matters. Where do you want the vehicle? We call it 1G. And what I'm gonna do in black, I'm gonna just go, and we're gonna say that's, I'm a little bit off, but we'll say this is supposed to be 2 inches, right? So no matter what spring kit you use, you need to come up with the rate and the preload, so that way when the vehicle's sitting there with its own weight, it sits on that point. What I'm gonna do is change colors right now, and I'm gonna go and draw what is like on a stock Xpedition, or actually we'll get into a long travel because you end up having to put a lot of preload in a long travel one. Some kits use up to 4 inches of preload. So the initial force of the shock, it's really bound up. It has a lot of potential energy because you've preloaded those springs so much. So let's say we need 500 pounds is our goal. This is where our ride height we want to be. We're going to call this 500. And depending on your rate, a dual rate kit is going to look something like this. And then when it crosses over, hits the crossover rings, then you're going to get your secondary rate. Now, that all looks good, but you know what I mean? You get some bottoming resistance and it kind of makes sense. What we don't like about this is this whole area in here. You have to think your shock is completely extended, and we're gonna estimate this maybe 400 pounds because you have so much preload on the spring. At full extension, to move that shock just a little bit is 400 pounds. So you drop your wheel off a rock or something, the spring just wants to push the shock out. So that annoying top out feel happens from that. And that's one thing we don't like, and we don't really believe in putting straps and all of that. We feel like the shock and the spring rate should take care of that itself without limit straps. So now let's get into what a single rate spring does. For us to go and make that same 500 pounds, we're gonna use a heavier rate spring, but now we can start with way less preload. Our Xpedition, my line's a little crooked. We'll try to straighten that out a bit. We're able to start with way less preload, kind of like a normal vehicle. When you look at a normal Razor 1000, you know, the rear end will have an inch and a quarter preload. And you need to do the dual rate because the vehicle's so light. Xpeditions are heavy. They're just way more, you know what I mean? And we load them up with the cab, the AC, all the extra features. They weigh a lot. So a single rate is a much better way to go. So we can start off with a normal preload. All of our stuff on Xpedition, between long travel, regular travel, we're in between 5/8 of preload, and I believe it's 1 1/4 inches. So we're starting off with thing. Our ride height, we're achieving our goal. We're making 500 pounds at the 2 inches, but notice how this whole middle section, the single rate fills it in, and we end up at almost the same final. So as you're driving a stock Xpedition, they feel very loose in the middle, and then you get a step feeling. So we'll get into that next. The stock shocks have a huge internal bypass area, which provides comfort, but it doesn't provide much support. It's really loose, to be honest. So it starts at about this 2-inch range, and it goes to about that 4.5 inch range. Now you look at this. As you move through the stroke of your shock, this whole center section is loose and it creates less force. Then when it crosses over that point, now your shock is making more force and your dual rate spring kit is now crossing over. This right here, your spring rate's flat, it's not making much force, plus you have no valving, then all of a sudden it crosses over. It creates a step feeling, you can't get around it. So as you're going through the stroke, it's loose and then it's hitting a wall. So with a single rate kit, we're filling in this hole, so it's creating force. It gives it much more linear, controlled, confident feeling. You don't feel so wallowy and rolly, and it works well on the Xpedition. So I hope this all makes sense and didn't get too complicated, but this is why we choose a single rate spring for Xpeditions. Please check us out on the website, and if you have any questions or want any more information on this, drop a comment and we'll do our best to answer it.